This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. This is Rich Severson, the VP of Global Solutions Engineering at Stratodesk. Thanks for joining us today. Today we got a pretty interesting, pretty fun panel. A couple of guys that I've worked with before and continue to work with, obviously. And so what we want to do is we're going to talk about VMware and Stratodesk and repurposing and all those kinds of things. And just a second, I'll let Brent and Darren introduce themselves. But this was actually kind of brought up by the fact that Darren and Matt Evans, both with VMware, have done a couple of reports about repurposing software and repurposing PCs, and given the current climate and the chip shortages and the things that people are dealing with trying to come up with clients, and then how to try or tie those clients into different VDI solutions, all those kinds of things, we thought it was probably pretty pertinent to have a discussion with Darren about the report, how it came about, all those kinds of things. So Darren, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Brent, you, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So.
Cool, thanks, Rich. So yeah, I'm Darren Hirons. I'm a lead solutions engineer for the digital workspace at VMware. So yeah, that's me.
And Darren, you're located in?
I am based in the UK. So myself and Matt are both based in the UK.
All right, well, very good. Brent?
Hey, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Brent McCoubrey. I'm part of the EUC Americas technology team at VMware. I'm based up in Quebec City, Canada.
And I guess since how I called you guys out for location, I should have called mine out. I'm located in Nashville, Tennessee. So, but anyway, so like I said, we're this, kind of got started off by the fact that, obviously we have a partnership with VMware, and actually, interestingly enough, the slide now, as of yesterday, I think it is a little bit out of date. We just recently recertified or certified with VMware with the 2106 Horizon client, and then we received notification, I think it was yesterday, the day before, that there's now a 2106.1. So we actually are in process of certifying that. So look forward to that. That should be coming out pretty quickly. There's some changes there. And Brent, I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't looked at the release notes. Or Darren, if you guys know what those changes are, we can talk about those in a minute. But again, this came out of our partnership with VMware, and we just wanted to have an opportunity to talk to Darren and Brent about the things that are going on. So Darren, again, this started because of the report that you and Matt had done, and I guess it's the third time you guys have done it. And so if you wouldn't mind, you want to give us a little history about, how this whole thing evolved, why you guys do it, some of the test mechanisms and things, and the results, just out of curiosity, how has that evolved?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I guess how it came about is that working for a vendor like VMware, we go out and talk to, potential customers about Horizon as a solution, and quite often those customers would say to us, oh, we need to get something clients, or we need some desktop repurposing software, what do you recommend? Well, being a vendor, we're not really supposed to recommend any in particular. So what we tend to do is we tend to say, well, these are the ones that are available, we suggest you go out and sort of test them all yourselves. And then myself and Matt started thinking, well, how about if we kind of saved people a bit of work, and we actually did like a yearly report where we tested all the main ones. So we took a look what was in the market. We took a look at ones that were based on Windows. We looked at ones that were based on Linux, and we looked at ones that were based even on Chrome OS. And we tried to make some sort of report which showed not only what the user experience was like in terms of like the quality of the video and all those kinds of things, but also what the admin side looked like, a little bit about how configurable the thin client and the repurposing software was, how easy it was to deploy, what deployment options there were, was it just off a USB stick, or could you push it out with SCCM and things like that. So really, the first year of the report was kind of like a bit of a testing ground where we kind of tried to do this as one big report, made it into a video where people could go and look at what these things look like. We recorded all these thin clients in action. And then when it came to the second year, we were in the middle of the pandemic, and we had trouble getting hold of the kit, and we had trouble repeating exactly what we'd done in year one. And so we had to do like a cut down version of it, but we did test new versions of code, we just didn't create new videos. And then when it came to this year, we were still in the pandemic, so we were still not able to get hold of the latest kit and stuff. So really we had to test again with old kit, whatever we could get hold of, a lot of virtual machines rather than laptops, for example. for the repurposing. So years 2 and 3 are not quite on a par with year 1 in terms of what we were able to test, but they still contain a lot of useful information. Within that information that we've collected about each vendor as well, we also tried to build a kind of mock use case around how much it might cost per month to manage 10,000 of these devices. So there's all sorts of metrics around that in terms of how much electricity each one consumes. We measured that, you know, how much power they consumed and how much that would equate to over the period of being in use for like 8 or 9 hours a day. So all that information's in the report, and you can get hold of that from any of the previous 3 years.
Yeah, and we'll have to make sure somehow we get that link, because we've got this link, the link in the slides or in the slide notes. We'll have to make sure that we get that link out so people can take a look at it. So
yeah, so the actual link, I think, has got the sort of name in it, to re or not to repurpose, which I'll give Matt credit for. Matt came up with that, but yeah, it's good. It's a good piece of work. We get to have a year where we spend 2 or 3 weeks working on all these solutions, testing out all the latest versions, seeing what's changed, what's improved, and then we just put all the information out there for people to look at. And of course, Stratodesk is one of those vendors that we always include.
yeah, and I mean, I'm guessing that probably gets a fair amount of traffic from different people. Like you said, the people are asking, what do we do? Especially, like I said, with the chip shortage right now, it seems like people are in a mad scramble to come up with hardware anywhere, and then they want to know, does it work with Horizon? Does it work with this collaboration tool? Does it support this? And so having something like that where it's a consolidated, good piece of information that, to your point, from a thin client or software vendor, a repurposing vendor, you guys are neutral. You just run the report and do all the test results and publish it out there, which is what I find absolutely amazing, that you guys put that much effort into it. Because, anybody that does this, for any kind of a living understands that it's not something you just go, hey, let's test 2 things and come up with a report. It's a pretty detailed report that you guys put together.
Yeah, I think if it hadn't been for the pandemic, by now we probably would have also included features and functionality of the management tool as well. We had visions to take this, a bit further and do more testing and more in-depth testing, but due to pandemic, we've had to cut back a little bit. But hopefully next year we'll be able to expand that. But I have to say, in the last, 12, 18 months, we've seen a lot more people looking at desktop repurposing software rather than thin clients. There seems to be a shift towards definitely towards repurposing rather than by going out and replacing old PCs with thin clients. And I think that's driven by 2 things. One of them is perhaps the chip shortage, which you just mentioned, Rich. But I think the other one is also the ecological impact of that as well. So people are not wanting to create all this e-waste. People want to keep using the old kit, but just repurpose it, and they'll get exactly the same employee experience out of that old kit just by repurposing it with software, like Stratodesk, for example.
Well, and honestly, I think part of it too is, people are running, there's still the Win 7, Win 10 migrations, and now we're going to start the Win 11 migrations, and people have come to realize that, look, you've got this machine that's out there that maybe 8 gigs of RAM and a disk drive and, an i5, i3, whatever type processor that may not be suitable for Win 10 or Win 11, but it's still plenty of hardware for being a thin client. So, if you can take something like No Touch OS that is an optimized enterprise managed Linux OS and make that machine still completely viable. And actually, as Brent and I found, and we'll go into that in a couple minutes, you can actually take that hardware that seems somewhat laggard in performance and put something like Linux on it and tie it into Horizon and actually get better performance out of it than what it was with Windows 7. So we're
Absolutely.
I think we're seeing a lot of that because of that.
Yeah, I think you've hit on an interesting point there. With the release of Windows 11, there's going to be a lot of PCs out and desktops and laptops and stuff out there running Windows 10, which are not capable of running Windows 11. And people don't have to throw those away. They don't have to replace them necessarily. Repurposing is a great way to extend the life of those and, not create so much e-waste.
Well, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I notice, here in my office, I actually happen to have 2 laptops. Both of them happen to be i5s. Both of them happen to have either 8 or 16 gigs of RAM. A 500 gig SSD. It doesn't meet the performance that I need now for my tasks, but yet it's a more than capable laptop for just about anybody else. And I sit here and go, what am I going to do with them? Now, fortunately, I have 5 adult children, so I'm going to repurpose one of my laptops to one of my kids. But I mean, other than that, it would sit here collecting dust or end up in the dumpster somewhere, which, to your point, is an environmental issue. So why not take advantage of that hardware that, otherwise would be sitting idle and or no longer functional for the latest OS, but yet be able to repurpose it and tie it into, especially when you can add a management platform to it, tie it into, an infrastructure, be able to manage it, whether it's, remote or in the office. So it's rather interesting how this whole thing is evolving. So.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think I mentioned that when we did this year's report that some of the kit we wanted to use, we couldn't get hold of due to pandemic. We couldn't go into the office. And one of the laptops that Matt actually used for his testing was an 11-year-old laptop.
Yeah. So was it 32-bit still or 64-bit?
I think it was 64-bit. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to check. It'd be in the video and the docs. It's got the spec in there. People can check it out. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he said it was an 11-year-old laptop, so it was pretty old. It was a really old Dell one.
Well,
but just goes to show that this stuff works on some really old kit, and you get the same experience as you would on new kit.
Well, and just by the way, so Allison, I believe, posted the link to the report into the chat. So anybody that wants to get that, I believe it's there. So. And again, I just, I want to thank you and Matt for putting the effort into that. I mean, it's a pretty tremendous report, and it's good information for a lot of people that are looking, trying to figure out how they want to do what they want to do with all these devices and repurposing them and reusing them. And are they functional? And interesting the test methodologies that you went through. So it's funny. I'm going to jump to the next slide here a little bit, but I want to point out the fact that I kind of asked that whether it was a 32-bit laptop or a 64-bit laptop, kind of out of purpose of direction, because that's actually how Brent and I got introduced. I guess, well, I should say how Brent and I got reintroduced. Brent and I got introduced via a project that for a customer. And I'll let Brent go into it a little bit. And then as Brent and I had been working together, we realized that Brent and I had actually met probably 10, 12 years ago, not face-to-face, but via this kind of meeting where we're having a training session and or technology transfer based on previous jobs for both of us. So it was kind of funny. We're like, oh, we've actually worked together before. So anyway, Brent, I'll let you bring that up. What drove you to call Stratodesk, and kind of how what we did that kind of surprised you and led to how we're now working together in this 2-year-long project now.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Rich. So yeah, I laughed with just before you mentioning how old was the machine. So yeah, one of the challenges that we had with this project was repurposing old hardware, and old to the point where this is a 32-bit CPU architecture. So it just gives you a bit of an idea of how old the hardware is. This is a use case in the retail sector. A lot of the retailers, overall worldwide are coming up against the end of life of Windows 7 POS, which is coming up October of this year. So a lot of them are saying, okay, what do I do? Right? Do I go and replace all of my registers across all the stores and to support Windows 10, and then knowing how fast Windows 10 and now Windows 11 coming, they're seeing that this is going to be a nightmare, continuing in this process. So looking at how can we extend the life of what we've got, even though we've extended the life or used its useful life as much as we can we extend it even more and tie in the benefits of virtualization that they're reaping from other workloads. So basically a new use case added in using VDI. So the project we had essentially and one of those bullet items was 32-bit CPU. So that in itself was a challenge. As what can we run as a 32-bit CPU, a 32-bit OS on that endpoint and really set it and forget it, right? Because it's not just one thing to extend the hardware, but at the same time is looking at how do we become more efficient in day two operations. Because a lot of the challenges, again, with these customers in the retail is sending out a lot of folks on site to do break and fix. It's one thing to fix the hardware, but when it comes to the software piece, a lot of the times is they don't troubleshoot. It's just we'll just reinstall and rebuild, which could take a couple of hours. So looking at a couple of those criteria is how can we be more efficient, save costs, extend the life, and slowly do a change with the hardware. At some point they will have to, but not make it a one big change up front. So this is where I started doing a bit of my research, saying what are my options, and this is Rich how I fell onto you guys, and I've been familiar with Stratodesk in the past, and I've done a couple of other projects along with you guys, but this was really a niche requirement here. And I remember sending out an email to Emmanuel, and I had 4 questions, and it was like, if you answer yes to these 4 questions, we need to speak. And he said yes, and says, here's Rich. So that's how we got introduced and worked on this project.
Yeah, in fact, actually, I remember that day very vividly because I happened to be at a convention and I was getting ready to depart. So I was balancing having to have a conversation with Brent to go over this big project versus getting to the airport to catch my flight. But it worked out well. Actually, it was funny because the core of the initial conversation was, do you support 32-bit? Number one, and then number 2 was as we dived into that, became a longer project, is all the different COM port support, and that was an adventure. Just sorting through all that, when you get back to some of that legacy hardware and the legacy applications, you go back, certainly when you talk about retail and point of sale use, there's a lot of COM ports, and all the different things that go into that, whether you're talking about printers, whether you're talking about scales, whether you're talking about the flagpoles, all of those different things. And, it was interesting having to sort through all that stuff and kind of showing our age a little bit, wind back our memories and go, okay, so how do we diagnose these COM port issues and bring that into the current VDI, and one of the things that we found doing this is one of the first issues that we had to solve, besides recognizing COM ports and where devices were, is we actually got to a point where, because of Horizon, because of the new hardware that Horizon was running in, and because Stratodesk OS was much more efficient on that 32-bit hardware, we were actually outperforming what the applications could do and recognize the ports. So there was a whole bunch of troubleshooting around all that kind of stuff. But it was interesting. It was fun, and I can't wait till the day that we can maybe publish one of those videos that we put together, because it was pretty cool the way the whole solution works out. So and again, Darren, it goes back to your whole thing about repurposing. Again, you think about this, right? As Brent said, this is legacy 32-bit hardware. Brent, do you even know what vintage year that stuff was made?
No, I don't.
But it's certainly dust collectors. Let's put it that way. But yes. But when you tie that in with Horizon, and again, without divulging too much information, we've actually found that the retail transactions per second, which is how retail gets measured, is certainly the same, if not improved, even though the software-defined store, everything's now in the cloud. And so, Brent, I don't know how much you want to go in, or you can divulge about that, but you want to talk about that a little bit, about moving that workload from on-premise to the cloud? Is that something we can discuss? Or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a couple of things, right? So there's the endpoint itself, and you're talking about the COM ports. And again, one of the challenges that we ran into was getting a COM port support, right? Because that was code that was, developed along the way, and we had to back up and say, okay, what 32-bit OS can run on this hardware, and then what is the capability of that OS with the version of the Horizon client that's supported. So I know kudos to you guys on helping put a version of an image together to add that support in from what we have with the COM port with the newer versions of the client and backport it into that. So it just shows the great collaboration there. And then from the management perspective, right, we're using the No Touch Center, which is running in an Azure instance to manage all of the endpoints running in stores. So right now, we have the customer is running about over 40 stores right now, with over 600 some lanes, but this is all managed from the cloud from a Stratodesk perspective. And from the VM itself, right, we're now having it live either on-prem or in the cloud. So we're trying different hyperscalers right now to see, get the performance and the stats on that. But so far, it's working all good. So even with the additional latency added, the communications are working fine. The devices are performing great. And even to your point from the speed, right, the endpoint is actually performing a bit quicker because now it's not doing any of the processing. So we've taken off all of that work on it, moved it over into the virtual machines, and it's basically now just, scanning items and it is receiving the screen updates. So we've lightened its load tremendously. And actually, like I said, it improved the performance.
So, well, and so in regards to the performance and the capabilities kind of things, and I think it's important to point out too, one of the benefits of the solution, Stratodesk and Horizon together, is this actually ended up, as we've learned and evolved with this, is not only is it a Windows solution, but we're also integrating a Linux solution, right? So some of the target sessions are Windows, some of the target sessions are Linux. So
exactly,
the ability to have the same endpoint OS, the same delivery vehicle, but yet have different workloads and different line of business applications all running in the same environment with the same tools.
Correct. And then that adds to the other end, right? The different endpoints, because we have some that are, from one manufacturer, Toshiba, you have others are from NCR, and I even worked with using Wise Dell thin clients, and we've repurposed those with No Touch OS also, so for a retail endpoint. So from a management perspective, right, it's the same platform, but across a diverse set of hardware.
So, and Darren, this is not as much of a question, but as an offer, I would tell you, if you and Matt decide to go into this again next year, as you mentioned, having the ability to test the management tools and stuff like that, if you get to that point and you guys want to do this again, let me know. I would be more than happy to provide you with an instance of No Touch Center. That way you guys can do some remote management, because again, with people working from home now, and in Brent, in this case, we've got devices all over the place. The ability, in my opinion, having been in the space as long as I have, the operating system is really important. The abilities, the capabilities, the VDI, those are all important. But as we all know, when you go to deploy endpoints, if you can't manage them, if you can't control them, regardless of whether they're inside the environment or if they're work from home, that's a challenge. And I think that's one of the things that we at Stratodesk have done really well, is our management platform, regardless of work from home or on-prem, has been amazing. And the fact that we can offer it, on-prem, as Brent, thank you for throwing that in there, the fact that you can now run No Touch Center natively in Azure. It'll take you all of 5 minutes to deploy it if you're an Azure customer and have Azure resources. So Darren, don't mean to be babbling on too much, but like I said, I just want to make sure that if that's something you guys want to do next year, let us know. We'll be happy to offer and give you guys the ability to do those testings.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rich. That is something we plan to do. So we'll be getting back to yourself and all the other vendors to try and test out all those management consoles and capabilities. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just looking at the slides here, for everybody that's on the call here, basically what we do is we just use these slides for references, for talking points, and we just talk about the different solutions and things that we've come up with. So we've talked about, the legacy devices and converting those devices to Stratodesk and Horizon and the Comport and legacy stuff. So let's take a look here. Let's see what's on the next slide. So, and I'll talk a little bit about the software-defined store. Again, the key things about it was the fact that we're able to take this legacy hardware, 32-bit, and some of the newer stuff that's 64-bit, some of the stuff that's Windows 7, bring it to current to where they're connecting to Win 10 VDIs. God, heaven forbid, Brent, that they say come up to us next week and say, by the way, we're now going to go from Win 10 to Win 11. I mean, certainly we can do it. We have the capabilities when the OS is there, but we've got enough going on with this project already. 2 years into it. But the 32-bit, the 64-bit, and what surprised me, and I want to thank you and say kudos to you, is when the customer came out and introduced and said, by the way, we're going to include the kiosks. So that was interesting. Hang on a second. So speaking of, we were talking earlier about pets. I just realized my cat's sitting here asking to get out. So, but the fact that those kiosks got thrown in and you were able to make it work.
Yeah, so the self-checkout kiosks, yeah, and we're talking about a variety of hardware. This particular customer has 5 different types of hardware configurations out there. So being able to adapt to all of those minor changes, but again, from a Stratodesk perspective, it's still the same configuration across the board, so it's transparent for them. And also add, right, it's not just serial, it's also USB devices that are in there. So we're having a mix and match between that. So all the integration that you've done with the Horizon client and allowing us to be able to do all those configurations and just push that down, they don't have to worry about it. So that's helped a lot.
Well, and again, we talked at the beginning of this, the diversity of our geographies, right? You being in Quebec, me being in Tennessee, Darren being in the UK, and I know, Darren, you haven't been in this project, but I mean, certainly you could participate. I mean, what's been interesting is the end customer has called and said, hey, we've had an issue. We get on a go-to-meeting like this, and we have them launch the console or connect to the console, and we're able to actually manage those devices, reconfigure those devices, troubleshoot those devices, being in the remote stores, without having to impact the store staff, without having to, have a vendor walking around inside of a real retail environment that's live and people, customers are walking around and not impacting the customers. So it's been a fun project from that perspective to be able to do all this and, to take something that's been legacy on site, we'll call it dust collecting line of business applications, to now it's high performing. Everything has been forklifted almost out of the stores to where it's just the hardware and no touch OS. The Horizon, the workload has been shifted to Horizon and to a VMware infrastructure in the customer's cloud. I don't think it's a public cloud, Brent, is it?
So we're doing tests with AVS, GCVE, even pushing on GCP. So like I said, there's a couple of hyperscalers that we're testing out.
So, I mean, so you think about this, literally moving an entire retail business, software-defined store from on-prem physical location to a hybrid, where you've got limited hardware, limited OS running in the physical stores, to moving the entire workload to a cloud, whether it be a public cloud or a private cloud, and not impact the business, and yet improve the efficiency by both improving the performance of the devices, improving the manageability and the capability, and the thing is we actually, I should say you actually resolved some problems the customers had for a couple of years and they didn't even realize that what they were there. But part of that was just by improving the performance of the applications and the hardware so efficiently, it exposed problems that were in the environment that they hadn't been able to discover what the problems actually were.
Yeah, like I said, it's been an interesting, very interesting project. A lot of interesting learnings along the way there, for sure.
So and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I know you said that there's potential of a couple others coming out, and so we shouldn't just focus solely on retail, because again, obviously using Horizon as a VDI environment, and Stratodesk as the OS, it goes beyond certainly retail. We have customers that are, call centers, all those kinds of things. And Darren, this is going to be a question for you, so I'm going to kind of cue you up for a moment, because I'm not sure, I don't recall. It's been a while since I looked at the report. Did you guys have to go through a complete gambit of collaboration tool testing? I mean, did you test, the things like Zoom and GoToMeeting, all those things through that, or is it something just because of COVID you weren't able to do those tests?
When it comes to collaboration tools, there's a split when it comes to Horizon. So we actually, as VMware, we produce the optimization plugin for Microsoft Teams with a lot of the other vendors, or should I say with all the other vendors such as Zoom. The vendor themselves produces the plugin that goes into Horizon. So there's a bit of a split depending on what collaboration tool you're talking about.
Right, but as part of your guys' report, did you include and run those kinds of tests as well, or?
No, so this was not part of the test, but certainly something that we could do in the future. What we did for the test is we tested like power consumption with the product running idle, and then we did power consumption with it running a video and with it running a Horizon session, and ramping up as much as we could run. But we never tested it with any kind of collaboration tool. So that's something that we can consider next year.
Well, and that's why I wanted to ask, because I couldn't recall whether that was there. And obviously, that's the challenge that we face, right? We being you guys and us, is that, with the race to work from home and all those kinds of things, and I kind of call this the year of, work from home better, it's been the struggle and the race, between Teams and WebEx and Zoom and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So having all those different collaboration tools, I couldn't imagine how you and Matt could have had the ability to test all of those things. And
yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Rich. I was going to say one of the things which is important to point out as well is that when it comes to enabling these collaboration tools with like Teams optimization, for example, not all these desktop repurposing tools are equal, right? So some companies like yourselves, Rich and Stratodesk, they're like one of the first to get out there and get our code on your devices and be able to allow your users to do Teams optimization. There are some other vendors out there that still haven't even done it yet, and it's in their roadmap, but they've not got to it. So, this also should focus people's attention on, who are the strongest vendors, who can get to market quickest with the newest features. But also the other thing is that there's there'll be some other vendors out there that perhaps don't even support certain offloads as well. So you also have to take that into account.
Yeah, well, and again, to your point, right, that's where it becomes important between, the organizations and the partnerships and what those partnerships mean. I mean, quite frankly, being a top alliance partner with VMware, it puts a little bit of a workload on us, right? Because every time that there's a new version of the client, we have to go back and recertify that. In fact, I'm going to throw this out there, right? If I didn't mention it at the beginning, we're currently certified with the 2106 client, and now there's a 2106.1. So we're in process of doing that. Hopefully, we'll have that published, within a day or so. I know the guys are going through testing it, but having all these different collaboration tools and having the plugins, it's interesting because, again, we all share the same customers, so let's say that it's a VMware Horizon customer and a Stratodesk customer, and the customer goes to test things like Zoom, and then they open a ticket because they're having a problem because the plugin isn't performing the way it's expected, or what have you, or the performance hasn't been what's desired. So then, they open a ticket with you guys, they open a ticket with us, they open a ticket with Zoom, and they go, help, and rather than just, pointing the finger saying, hey, it's not our problem, it's not our problem, it was really interesting. I'm referring specifically to a case with Zoom where the customer pointed out that they were having an issue. Obviously, it went to the VMware team. It came to our team. We got on a call with VMware real quickly, and we discussed and discovered that it was actually a Zoom thing. And because of that, we established a partnership directly with Zoom, and we were able to get on a call with the Zoom team. And within 7 days, we had a resolution to a VMware Zoom plugin for Linux to where it resolved the problem. So it's, again, these partnerships and working together for these different collaboration tools and the ever evolving collaboration tools, it's really important to the end customers. So I suspect we're going to continue with these challenges. So let's see, is there anything else, guys, that you can think of that we wanted to talk about or cover real quick? I mean, Brent, anything which your kind of latest? And before we go, obviously I'll bring that up again, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk about the upcoming VMworld. But before we get there, I mean, Brent, Darren, is there anything else you guys want to go? Hey, by the way, we haven't talked about.
Well, I mean, Rich, you alluded before, right, to the work that we do together, both organizations, and even you and I've been on, calls, and you've looped in your engineers, and we've worked together to address some challenges. And one of the things that we're also doing work on is the integration with Workspace ONE. Recently, some of the things that you've been releasing with No Touch Center, allowing a better flow of information and between both our Workspace ONE UEM solution to the Unified Endpoint Management and No Touch. So this just brings our solutions even closer together for having a really true, one place that does not just the virtual machines and actual, Windows and all of the other operating systems that we support, but also now bring in No Touch OS into the fold here, so that as a central management plane, we can start having that discussion more now and saying, yeah, we can, have a better integration, which is again what everyone's looking for, right? It's like remove me consoles, don't have me bounce all over the place trying to do configurations, especially in VDI, right? You're saying, well, I'm repurposing the person's endpoint. Well, I should just set it and forget it now, just have to worry about their virtual machine, right? But I want to make sure the endpoint follows along and stuff. So there is work I know that we're doing there to provide customers that better integration, visibility. So again, extending our uniform or unified endpoint management to your stuff.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up, because I was debating, is that something we wanted to talk about? Because obviously that's still a work in progress, real early work in progress. And I know I sent that information over to you a week or so ago. So I'm curious, we'll have to have a separate conversation off of this about where that might land, because yeah, I think, again, you take what No Touch OS and No Touch Center can do, and then tie some of those functions and controls into Workspace ONE, where now, and I won't go into all the Workspace ONE things because you guys know it better than I do, but to be able to have a Workspace ONE console and be able to see the environment, be able to manage, monitor, the applications and the virtual environment, and then be able to extend that right out to the physical endpoints to be able to have a seamless visibility through the entire workflow. I can't wait to see how that works out. So I know there's going to be a lot of work there, but we'll see how that works out. So Darren, I mean, any other things that you wanted to throw in, bring up? I mean, obviously you've been doing a lot. We haven't talked about some of the projects you've been working in. Is there something that you wanted to bring up that's kind of made you excited or made you go,
Well, you put me on the spot a bit there. I've been doing a bit. I've been working with a customer. I've been working with a customer recently who had an interesting use case where they didn't have old PCs that they wanted to replace. They had old thin clients. And one thing I think that some people are not aware of as well is that you can actually repurpose old thin clients as well.
Yeah.
So just because you've got an end of life thin client doesn't mean you have to throw that away either. So I think that's important to point out. So, working at VMware, we come across all different kinds of projects where people want to use all different types of endpoints, and that's sort of only been sort of expanded by the pandemic and the number of people that are working at home on different types of devices. But going back to something that you said before, I think you pointed out one key feature going forward, which will differentiate some of these repurposing vendors than others, is the ability to manage things from the cloud. Because as more and more people start to go home, if you want to send these, if you want to send somebody home with a USB stick and get them to turn their PC into a repurposed corporate desktop, a corporate thin client, for example, and then when they finish, they can pull that out and turn it back to their original PC, things like that. But also the ability that when they do plug it in at home, you can fully configure it as well. So, this is really what flexible working is all about. It's about turning the devices into other things that they can use it for and then turning it back again when they're finished. So there's all kinds of use cases out there. It's just a case of exploring what there is.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because interestingly enough, I was talking to a customer the other day and they said, well, we don't really need to worry about having a cloud management solution because all our devices are going to be connected via the VPN. So once they're connected, we can manage them. I said, well, that's all well and good. I said, you do realize 80% of your tickets are going to be the end users just getting their VPN working. So if they can't get their VPN working, you can't help them. So
yeah, and I think even within VMware, I think there's quite a large proportion of our tickets are VPN related. I think VPNs are notoriously problematic, and if you can get rid of that VPN and manage it from the cloud, that's so much easier world to manage, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, the kind of the cool thing for us, if you will, again, you take, let's say you put No Touch Center into Azure, right? So now you've got your management instance sitting in the cloud, and you've got the device sitting at somebody's work from home, and they need to be able to use a VPN to do their line of business applications. If the VPN's broken, if your management infrastructure was inside the network, you now can't help them. The advantage of putting No Touch Center in a cloud instance such as Azure is now, as long as the device can get onto the person's home network and it can report to No Touch Center, you can now manage it, you can shadow it, you can reboot it, you can reconfigure it, you can help the customer, the end user, get their VPN working so they can get to their line of business things. It's no longer dependent on, hey, without the VPN, we can't help you. Now it's as long as the device is on and connected to the network, we can help you. We can get the VPN connected. We can make sure that you've got the right VPN connections. And as VPNs and remote connectivity evolve, we get these more and more challenges being like hip checks and hardware checks. I'm actually now getting more and more queries where people are saying, because of our security, it now has to be a known hardware entity. It has to have a specific vendor tag, it has to be a specific MAC address, etc., or we don't even allow it on the network. It's amazing how this has evolved.
Yeah, I think people are certainly taking security a lot more seriously now. But that issue of the VPN, I think what a lot of customers are doing now is, rather than connecting the device to the VPN, they're just allowing the device to connect directly into Horizon, and then wherever that Horizon platform resides, that's what holds the VPN connection back to the internal data center. That's a much better way to do it, because then you're not relying on each individual person having a VPN, and there's a lot less to go wrong.
Well, and from a VPN management perspective, that makes a whole lot more sense, right? So in that case, I just want to make sure for everybody's point. So basically what you're doing is you're giving the end users the ability to connect to, if you will, a Horizon Cloud Gateway service, and then basically using almost a presence to presence VPN for the security there.
Yeah, because we can put Horizon anywhere nowadays. We can put it in all public clouds, like Brent was saying before. We can put it in Google's cloud, we can put it in Amazon's cloud solutions, we can put it in VMware on AWS, Oracle Cloud, etc. There's various clouds we can put it in, and it doesn't matter which one it goes in. You can still create VPNs from those clouds back to your on-premises data center if you've got one, and you can still give those users that are accessing those Horizon desktops and apps, you can still give them access to on-premises resources. So you don't need to connect the device to the VPN. You can do it in the back end. It seems a much better, more resilient way to do it.
That's absolutely brilliant. So, all right, well, I think we're kind of approaching the 45-minute mark. So I think we're getting close. I think we've covered everything pretty much. So I wanted to throw it out there. If anybody's got any questions and wants to ask questions in the chat, please feel free to do that. Hopefully between the three of us on the phone, we might be able to answer it, unless you're asking for the lottery numbers. Can't help you with that. So if there's any questions, please feel free. And again, I don't know which of you two, or if both of you want to address it. Again, we'll give you the opportunity to bring up the VMworld upcoming event.
Sure. Yeah. So our yearly event is coming up quickly. It's going to be beginning of October. Hopefully everyone has received information or has seen the stuff go by. But it is it's going to be a follow with the sun. So we're going to have this rolling, through the Americas, EMEA and APJ. There's tons of sessions. It starts on October 5th, and it's running for 2 days, of the 5th and the 6th. Everything's online, virtual again this year. So it's free to sign up, and then there's tons of sessions available. There's also, for those that want to join the hands-on labs, we have a lot of sessions available there too. So there's some guided workshops, there's some online simulations with all of our latest stuff. So access to all that kind of content that's there too. So yeah, it's we're gearing up again to have another great huge event here with lots of stuff to share.
All right. Well, and I think Allison just put the link into that, and also, if I recall, Allison and I were speaking yesterday. I think the VMUGs, the localized VMUGs, are going to be happening again pretty soon. And if I recall, I think they're actually going to be in-person events. So maybe the localized VMUGs in-person events will be there. So certainly, you may want to check your area if you're part of the VMUG groups and see what's going on and see if that's something you want to attend if you're comfortable with that. And so Brent and Darren, for me personally, I want to say thank you. It's been fun as always. And Darren, like I said, when you guys go to do testing next year, if there's anything that we can do, obviously you know how to get a hold of Paul or myself. Either way, we're happy to help. And Brent, you and I, we'll continue working on this project we've been working on. It cracks me up that 800 devices and 40 locations is still a POC, but to each their own. But it's been an interesting project, and I look forward to.
Yeah. Well, I guess, Rich, it is a much bigger POC, but at the same time, there's a lot of learnings and discovery that's happening there too, right? It's, just to clarify, we've been talking about Horizon here, but for this particular project, we're not using the traditional Horizon setup that folks would be traditionally used to, right? We're really using a subset here. Just an agent and a direct connect client. So we don't have all of the traditional other pieces that the virtual desktop would bring. So this allows us to keep this really small and very portable. That's why I said we can move this around to a lot of different platforms. But at the same time, we're just learning what can and can't be done here because this is now leading into great discussions around service levels, DR, high availability, what makes sense, right? This is truly going to be a hybrid solution. And so what's going to be that nice mix and that perfect mix for this customer? So this is why I just wanted to maybe clarify that, because I know I didn't mention that earlier, but yeah, it's bits and pieces. So it's very a unique setup we've got here. But again, it's using technologies we've had for over 10 years. For us, it's just another use case now that has come forward for this sector.
Yeah, and you're right, Brent. We should have clarified. I mean, you and I have been working on it long enough that we just take all that into the thought process. We don't bring it out to people. Is that we're taking advantage of all the key features and functionality of VMware and Horizon, all those kinds of things, but yet we're stripping it down because of the specific line of business and use case, which is part of the reason why it's the POC is going as long as it has. But what's interesting again is the fact that we're taking all these latest technology components, putting it on legacy hardware and almost to some extent legacy line of business and bringing it forward. I mean, this is something that the customer is going to be able to use for the forthcoming view from their perspective. Obviously, otherwise they wouldn't invest the money. But the fact that they're going to be able to continue and carry this, and actually probably the most important thing about this is the fact that they can continue to bring this line of business application current, make it completely functional, make it enterprise managed, make it scalable, as well as it's going to give them the ability to migrate into the future without having the roadblocks in front of them. So they're going to have a transitionable path.
Exactly.
So it's all good. So that was Brent's wrap up. So Darren, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I would just encourage people, if anyone's got any interest in any of the VMware stuff, especially the end user computing, then check out VMworld. I'll do my shameless plug. I'll paste my session into the chat. If anybody wants to attend the Architecting Multi-Cloud Horizon session, I'm co-presenting that. So that's my shameless plug to finish.
There's nothing shameless about this, right? I mean, we've been doing this long enough that you learn the goods and bads about what we do and how we do it. So being able to share that information and help people along the way, there's nothing shameless about it. And quite honestly, you put an investment in putting that information together, so it's not shameless. This is why we give you the opportunity at the end of this to bring these things up. So again, go ahead.
I would just reiterate what Brent said. Right, this is there's some fantastic content at the event. There's some fantastic speakers, not myself, but there's some fantastic speakers, and it's free. Right, it's not normally free. Only for the last 2 years during the pandemic. So my advice to anyone right now is take advantage of it being free. I'm sure Brent would agree.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then hopefully we'll see you in person next year.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Let's see. Did anybody? No, I was gonna say I don't see any questions. So, all right. Well, with that, guys, I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. This has been fun as always, and I look forward to it. You know, we'll probably do this again. We just got to come up with another project that's as interesting as this one is, and maybe we'll wait till Darren does his report for 2022, and we'll come back and revisit this. So, again, appreciate all the effort that you and Matt put into the repurposing report. Brent, again, working with you, it's always been a pleasure. I can't wait till we get to see each other. I owe you a beer or two for all the efforts and work you put into it. And Darren, you never know, if I make it over to the UK, I may ring your bell and say, hey, let's go have a beer over there. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you as always. Look forward to it. Thanks for the partnership between Stratodesk and VMware. Have a great day, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.